So today I have with me author, public speaker, yoga teacher, and so much more, Jennifer Pastiloff, whose memoir on being human is described by Cheryl Strayed as beautiful and tender, profound and absorbing. Welcome, Jennifer.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's so good to be with you. I'm such a fan. I'm happy to be here.
Yay! So I can think of roughly 9 million reasons to interview you, but today I want to focus on an aspect of your life that I think will resonate a lot with Oldster Magazine readers, and that is hearing loss. You're in your 40s, and I think most people associate major hearing loss with people much, much older. So,
Mhm.
how old are you now, and how old were you when you started to lose your hearing?
Yeah, wow. It's funny you ask how old I am because maybe you'll relate to this. I just had a birthday last Sunday and I have to think about how old I am. Like I have to pause. And it may seem like I'm lying. I never lie about my age, but I actually can't remember sometimes. I just turned 47.
Happy belated birthday.
Thank you.
And how old were you when the hearing loss started to
Yeah, that's
happen?
that's a complicated question. I don't know. Um, uh, it definitely, 100% was not like it is now when I was a child, but I always had it. Um, I had chronic ear infections, and when I say I was on antibiotic every day of my life until I don't know teens, I really was. Chronic ear infections, almost every other week, and um, I don't remember, but I remember something that kind of breaks my heart, and I wrote about it in the book. On top of my hearing loss, I have tinnitus, which on some days, and this is not an exaggeration, it makes me want to die. It is so maddening. It is so, I mean, it's like torture, truly. So I remember as a child, and it was before my dad died, so let's call me six, made it up, but I would, whenever I'd color, concentrate, write, I wrote even then, I would make this awful noise, this sort of like droning noise, and they called it the E, like an emergency broadcast for those of you that are old enough to know what that is. Um, and people made fun of me, and they were like, "Why do you do that?" And so I got ashamed, and I like locked it back in my body, and I never did that again. I just kept it in my head. Um, my hearing loss is so largely dialed in with my father loss, even though that sounds bizarre, but I became a master at denial and at disassociation, as it were, and disconnect and all the things. So, I mean, it's a skill that I wouldn't wish upon anyone, but I can just like pretend something's not happening. So it wasn't as profound, but it was happening. Now, as I got, let's call it early 20s, when I was in acting school in this period of time where I was pretending to be an actor, that's when I really started to notice it. And I would have to sit in the front row with the teacher. And then I think back to being at NYU, always having to sit in the front row. And all these things started to like come together. Think always have to sit in the front row, always being told I don't pay attention my whole life. I'm a space cadet. And all of a sudden, and I swiftly pushed it away because it terrified me. And I thought, oh, if I acknowledge, it sounds so ridiculous. If I acknowledge this, it's going to make it real. And if I don't, it'll go away.
I think
Spoiler
that a lot of us,
alert.
yeah, I think we can relate to that, that feeling of like, oh, let me put this aside and maybe it'll disappear.
Well, yeah, right. It's like with anything, with like doctor visits and I mean, especially getting older. So granted, I couldn't do that now. Now at 47, I couldn't. It's so profound. But 20 22 years old, if I don't know the degree of what it was, and it was bad, but it was enough that I was able to like, you know, and I made excuses all the time. This was, oh, I have a cold, I'm congested. Um, I was so ashamed. And I'm sure, we'll get into that later, but for anyone, you can read my book, but I thought there was something deeply wrong with me. I thought that it was my fault my father died and I was a bad person. And so I thought, and on top of that, now I'm broken and there's something wrong with me. And also, at least my age, there was such a stigma with hearing loss. Not there isn't with vision, right? But I was like, no way, no way, I'm not going to wear those big hearing aids, and I'm not deaf. So I kept pretending, and then I waited tables, and that's where I really mastered the art of reading lips, and I would squat down and talk to people, and I have a personality that's really friendly and really open, so it's like there's so many ways that I could cover it up. And there's always that the acoustics are so bad in here, but I was always really intimate with people, like, and okay, now I'm reading their lips. And then it got to the point where, finally I couldn't pretend anymore. And
how old were you when you couldn't pretend anymore and you realized that you needed to, have some sort of
yeah,
intervention?
well, that's a really great question. If the truth of it is way earlier than when I really, you know, it was probably, 22. And that's what breaks my heart. I think about all those years of, first of all, the exhaustion of trying to pretend to hear, of not hearing, of people thinking I was stupid. That's me, apologies. Of people thinking I was stupid. But it was finally when I I went to I did a yoga teacher training, even though I never really wanted to be a yoga teacher, but I had gone on antidepressants and I thought, okay, this might be a way out of the restaurant that I've been at for 14 years. And the teacher would say, close your eyes for these meditations. And it was the first time out loud I ever said, I must have been 30, let's call it 33 years old. I think it was the first time out loud I said, I can't hear if I close my eyes. And it was like, I have chills even now. It was the first time I'd ever said that out loud. And I was like, oh, I didn't die. I said it out loud. I didn't die. And it was just the first time I acknowledged it. And and then she began to take really good care of me. She'd always make sure I was in the front, you know. But it was funny. She made this comment. She goes, "Oh, that's why you're always looking at me like," and she kind of made this, imitated me in a way. And I would get that a lot when I would then run into people once I, go, I have hearing loss. They go, "Oh, we always just thought you were an airhead. We thought," I mean, incredible the perception of me, right?
It's
Like,
interesting. You've posted a lot about how right now it's extra challenging. COVID makes it extra challenging for you because people are wearing masks and you can't read their lips.
oh, it's a level of hell, and yet we need the masks. But you know, um, it's funny. Even like just for a second, I glimpsed at all your questions, and I was like, "Gosh, there's so much I haven't explored with all of this." And there's so, I think it's such a fascinating study on like. I think about a lot, like, oh, what humans could get used to. When I think about the fact that I haven't killed myself because of the tinnitus, like I get used to it. Like we could get used to anything. And how I just, I got used to essentially just being underwater and not knowing what was going on, and somehow compensating. And finally I wrote a blog. I wrote a blog, a post like admitting I have hearing loss. I went to the audiologist and it was like basically like, girl, you're you like 15%. I mean, how am I functioning? And I wrote a blog saying like, okay, well, I'm finally ready to not be ashamed and admit it, but can't afford hearing aids.
How old were you then?
34, I think. And I was teaching yoga at this place in West Hollywood at the time. And there was a woman who came who I thought hated me, because it's all about me. And she would sit on her mat and read the paper before class. And I made up a story about her, whatever. I don't know. And she somehow had my phone number. She read the blog within like a second of it being published. She calls me and she goes, Jennifer. I said, yeah. I said, who is this? She tells me. And I'm like, the lady who hates me? She's like, what are you doing right now? I want you to go to this address in Beverly Hills. I have a pair of hearing aids for you. My friend's an audiologist. They're being donated to you. Go get them. And I mean, first of all, I was like, oh wow, the stories we make up. This woman's amazing, you know. And then I got these hearing aids. They weren't right for me, but they, worked a bit, and like my whole life changed. I was like, oh, and it's heartbreaking, it is. It's beautiful, but man, why didn't I do that sooner? Same with antidepressants. And oh, I don't know, just how shame kept me. Like I really could have found a way to afford them and get them, when I was 20.
You talk so much about shame and shame loss. In your book, you talk about how long you tried to hide your hearing loss and your depression and other aspects of yourself. But then you started to open up and people responded and things shifted for you, like somebody donated hearing aids to you. And you talk a lot about shame loss. So can you talk about
Yeah.
how the shame loss relates to deafness?
Yes, yes, yes. I also want to say before I forget, this is a very unique. Um, I'm verklempt. I just woke up. It's a very unique moment because I just got new hearing aids and they're good, but they're loud. So in the past, I have never been able to do Zoom without um on the computer. Like I have to usually use my phone because then it streams through the hearing aids. So right now, I'm just listening through the computer because these are so good, so loud, and it's just like a wild. I'm like, I'm just sitting here. These are great hearing aids. So after shame loss, I have to tell you about how I got these.
Yes, yes,
Um, so you read my book, I think, but
I
you
did.
know, I nearly died from anorexia, and that was I never processed my grief over my dad, and yay, I found a way. I found a way to manage, and it almost killed me, but I about a year, more than a year ago, I had kind of a breakdown. I did have a breakdown in the beginning of COVID because all my work was in person, you know? And I was on the phone with a friend of mine who I just returned from visiting in New Jersey. And she said to me, why don't you start shame loss? Instead of weight loss, shame loss. And I was like, that is such a great idea. She said, well, I just thought of the name, but it's what you've been doing for years, Jen. And I thought, okay, I'll accept it. And I said, that's such a great idea. Of course, that doesn't, I'm sure someone has that URL. And no one did. And I bought it. And I started thinking about, first of all, the magnitude of being able to say, fuck weight loss. Let's talk shame loss, Um, and just really beginning to look at my life. One of the reasons I think, my next a big theme I work on is being right on time, is because I always thought I was late, I was behind, um, but so much of my life, I don't want to say was wasted because it wasn't wasted, but was blunted by shame. Um, Before my father died, like moments, like the last conversation we had, he said, "You're being bad and making me not feel good." I mean, and I said, "I hate you." That's the last exchange. 8 years old. So naturally, it's like, I'm bad. That became my mantra, right? I'm a bad person. I killed him. Um, and then everything onward was about hiding and feeling like a bad person. So when I get to NYU and I'm writing all these poems, and then I end up essentially dropping out and becoming a career waitress for 14 years at the same joint, every day was about shame. Not that there's shame in serving, but I'm an artist. I wasn't creating. I literally was a walking dead person. Um, and it wasn't until I finally began to talk about it that I realized I wouldn't die, first of all, if I talked about it, that I wouldn't get left, and in fact, quite the opposite would happen. And that sharing our stories has the power to heal other people, right? Um, and I also realized shame isn't logical. So when people are like, I don't understand, why would you be ashamed of hearing loss? Like, well, A, shame isn't logical. And B, because I thought something was wrong with me. So the thing I realized though, and I did realize this big time during the big early part of the pandemic, when I had this like breakdown again, was, I thought, well, how did I get here? I wrote a best-selling book, and I teach thousands of people, and blah, because everything's about daily practices, right? Everything's like, well, I end on being human with the two words I say every day. Now what? So it's not like, okay, I let go of shame over my hearing loss, and that's that. It's every day, every day choosing to put it down. Every day choosing to put it down. And so with the idea of shame loss, it's naming it, it's sharing it with people. And really the big thing for me, it's not that about oversharing. It's not like vomiting my everything to everyone. It's, I won't hide in shame. I just won't. Will not. Ever
I
again.
admire that. That's amazing. One of the things you also talk about in your book is radical listening, something that you've had to develop because of your hearing loss. And in a way, it almost makes deafness seem like a gift. Can you talk about that connection?
Like, did you say like a gift?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, no, it is. And also not to be like confused with like, in my book, I remember I talk about how when I broke my foot, I was really upset, and I was at the ER and I posted, and someone was like, "This is a gift. This is your yoga." And I was like, "You can fuck off." It doesn't, you don't immediately go to like, "This is a gift," right? Um, Absolutely. You've never been to my workshop, pre fucking COVID. I hope I can curse in this, but
You can curse.
you
I
know,
make the rules here at Oldster.
yeah. I'm a grown lady. I could do what I want. Pre-COVID and pre these really great hearing aids, okay? My workshop it was yoga, and I used it sort of as a trick to get people in the room, because once they're in the room, it's like I use that as a way to get people to get in their bodies, and just to connect. But people would share, and I couldn't hear. So essentially I'd have to go sit in their lap, and that was my joke. I wasn't in their lap, but I was like really in your face, which is amazing and terrifying. And it's amazing because you feel so heard and seen. And most people don't have that. I realized after doing this, and it wasn't because I was like trying to, look at me, I'm listening. Like I couldn't hear unless I really got, and I still usually would have a translator. I'd have someone next to me, I go, "What did they say?" I'm like my old Jewish, "What did they say?" But I was so close to them and so just like fully attentive. And and the joke was, I'd scoot around on my butt to get to each person, and like really, and it's terrifying also because people get afraid. They're not used to that. Like, and I'm not talking about someone that has like trauma that's like, don't get near me. I just mean you and me. Like, people are not used to being so heard and seen, and like, okay, so I say, I'm the best listener, even though I'm deaf. Because also I've had to learn how to listen with my entire body. I still do. I still, yeah, I wrote a silly post on the plane that I sent you yesterday. Actually, I don't think it's silly, about this man I was sitting next to. I couldn't hear a lick of what he was saying. Every other word. He had a mask on, the noise from the plane, but I heard him. Do you know what I mean? And we had this like really powerful exchange. And I thought, like, I missed a shit ton of what he was saying, and it doesn't matter. Like, I got that his son died when he was 30. His son was 30. I got that he thought he saw a rainbow. And then he said, no, it's just a shadow. And I said, no, it's an orb, and it means good things are coming. And, and we like held hands. And I'm able to accept that I miss a lot maybe of the details, but I don't. And I know that sounds a little cliche, but so much of life, first of all, is nonverbal. I've just learned ways to really, first of all, I think I'm a witch, and I know I am, but I've learned, especially as I've gotten older, I've just learned so many ways to listen beyond just my ears, which we all have that capability. I've just had to develop it more and more and more because these motherfuckers don't work so well. And when I don't have my hearing aids in, I can't hear anything.
That's amazing. So you are experiencing hearing loss, severe hearing loss at a much younger age than most people. What's it like to, I'm all about, Oldster is all about the incongruity between chronological age and our actual experiences and all the
Wait, I
expectations.
didn't hear the word. The what?
The incongruity
I got it.
between our
Yes.
chronological age, what we've been told will happen to us at a certain time, and what
Yes.
our actual experience is. So, what is it like for you to be having this experience that most people have much later in life?
I mean, first of all, I just want to keep talking to you forever. And you ask such great questions. And then before I forget, I do want to say, when I asked you to repeat the word, thank you for just repeating it because 9 times out of 10 what people do, they define it. And I'm like, I'm not stupid. I'm just deaf. I know what incongruity is. I just didn't hear you. So it's when um it's been this way for a really long time, and it's been frustrating because people think I'm kidding most of the time. Like, so if I'm ordering a coffee and they'll say like, what's your name, and I don't know, and they roll their eyes or they go so that's frustrating, first of all. And yet I also understand I don't present like a deaf person with a capital D, and let's clarify that. Capital D deaf culture, born deaf, or maybe not even born deaf, but no sound, usually don't wear hearing aids, communicate with ASL. And it's like it's a culture. And I don't know ASL. I want to. Um,
I was going to ask you about that.
yeah, but I don't present, so people, it's hard, like the incongruity. They're like, wait, what? But then if you spend time with me in person, you're like, oh, but just like meeting me or something. Um, it's I used to have a lot of shame. That question, I used to have a lot of shame around it. And then that when I decided like I'm gonna start living, you know, the shame loss life and hashtag real motherfucking life. I'm like, you know what? F that. All of a sudden now I'm like, I will not curse. Screw that. I refuse to. Fine, most people lose their hearing in their 80s and 90s, and mine went, who knows, right? When I was, and so it is. And I think that's really important because that is what shame loss is. So, Sari, I used to pretend, I mean, even like when I was, let's say, like 37 years old, I mean, even up until 40, I would pretend I would be in a conversation and I would like miss a lot of it. And then I asked the wrong questions, or I mean, it's so nonsensical. And now I lead with the thing that causes me shame. So it's exhausting, but right away I'll go, by the way, I'm deaf. I read lips, right off the bat. So there's no pretending. And I don't have to go through all that. And there's no shame there. There's no story. I'm not making a story about it. Like, I know most people are, it's like, just, this is the fact. Um, but I'm 47 years old. I'm here now. I mean, my hope is, with shame loss, with the work I do, my hope is maybe someone will get there earlier. I have these teens that follow me that just had to get hearing aids, and they said they got them because of me. And I have like, all these 20 something year olds, and it's so exciting. I think, oh, if I had someone like me, maybe I wouldn't have left school. Maybe I wouldn't have stayed stuck for so long because I was so ashamed and just was immobilized.
That's beautiful. Let's talk about these hearing aids. I know you've tried many different kinds over the years. What is it about these? And let's talk about them.
Well, actually, I haven't tried many different kinds. I got those first ones that were donated. And looking back, they were awful, but they were fine, but they were for like an old man who died, who never used them. And at the time, I had no money, and hearing aids are so expensive. Um, so I'm trying to think what happened. I don't remember if I lost them. Something happened, but I got a new pair, and I believe Yeah, you know what? I've only had 3 pairs. I lost them and I got a new pair. Someone started me a GoFundMe. Let's talk about shame again. I was like, I could never, especially because I was, perception, right? I was perceived as someone who was successful. And I had a lot of followers, the douchiest word in the world. And so, it's like, well, how could I? What are people going to think? And so it was humbling, and I accepted it, and I got these hearing aids. I got them when I was pregnant, and they changed my life. They were like, oh, they were made for me. I went to the audiologist, and they were great. And all of a sudden, they had technology the other ones didn't have, where they'd stream. Mainly I watch TV and all the things on my phone because it streams right into my head, like Black Mirror, right?
With headphones, with headphones.
No, sorry. Look, I'm gonna take them out. I'm gonna be deaf now. I can't hear anything. No,
Oh, so with Bluetooth?
these are what these look like. Hold on, I can't hear.
Okay.
So the other ones I thought were great. I was just like, and they were expensive. They were like, I think I paid $9,000. I had gotten this. So many people donated to the GoFundMe in like the quickest amount of time, and it was really humbling. I have one tattoo, bad Jew, one tattoo that says "I got you," but it's the "I got you" effect. I really,
Worst Jew, got 3 tattoos.
yeah. I did it. I feel like it's like something my bubby would say, but you know, um, these hearing aids, those ones I got, the GoFundMe was humbling because all these people donated, and I was look at all these people that care about me, and I realized, this work I've been doing. I had started sharing essays, and I'd started doing a lot of work that is the work I'm doing now, that is very much about community and like being of service. And I watched it come back to me. I was like, oh wow, okay. Like in a minute, basically, like $9,000, And
How old
and
were you then? Because you were pregnant. Your son is how old now?
um my son's gonna be 6 in May. I'm just trying to think when
So you would have
I
been like 40, 41 when you were
yeah,
pregnant.
no, but this was like I was like 39, I mean, what is time? Sorry, what is time? I can't remember.
Good
But
question.
let's say 39, 40, because I was pregnant when I was 40. Um, I was an oldster. So this GoFundMe was humbling, as if you can imagine, though I'm sure you can. I love the idea of like, smoke perception. People think like, and I didn't have a book out yet, but people saw me doing all these workshops and retreats, and again, like a lot of followers, and they, whatever. So I had to swallow all that, like, well, what will people think? And I got these hearing aids, and I was like, oh my God, my life changed. And again, in a lot of moments of sadness, because I realized how much I had missed, So,
Um, but then
what?
you got another pair recently, right? A
Yeah,
different.
I'm gonna tell you. So then,
Okay.
hearing aids, they don't last that long. And so, like, I'm not even kidding. A few months ago, I thought, oh no, I'm gonna need to get new hearing aids soon. These are like now, gosh, 6 years old. I don't know. They're getting old. They're fine, but and I was like, great. What am I gonna do? Like, I don't have, just 9 grand sitting in the bank, and I'm not even joking. I get it. I get an email from Maya Zeev, who was my editor for On Being Human at Dutton at Penguin. Someone had sent maybe Becky, who's my publicist friend, who was on leave, and it got sent to Maya, and she sent it to me. It was a hearing aid company looking to connect with me. And I was like, huh. Maya was like, would you be interested in this? And I read it, and it was basically like to be an influencer for hearing aids. And so like I'm like, I'll take the call. And they were in London. Oh my God. So basically they're like, well, we're gonna like fly out and we're gonna get you hearing aids. I'm like, wait, what? I mean, I literally had just said it a few weeks before. I was looking around, I'm like, am I on candid camera? They're like, and I was like, great, and these are like $6,500. That's, I think, the price. And they paid me. I negotiated a fee, which, by the way, very typical of me. I still haven't sent an invoice in. I don't know anyone else that operates like me. I'm like, oh yeah. But it was like magic. I was like, are you joking? Are you joking? And also, what a travesty that they're not more accessible, right? So, um, basically, I'm an influencer. So I got these hearing aids, and they paid me and gave me these hearing aids to promote them, and they're great. They're called Resound One. And at first it was hard. They were so much louder than my other ones. My other ones, when I turn them all the way up, this is what they sound like. And now I've gotten used to this. But like I heard my son's voice for the first time. So it's like even those other ones I thought were good, now I wear them as backup sometimes if these die. I can't hear anything. So it's like levels of like, how was I existing? Back to the way we can get used to anything. Just like managing, pretending, through context. So these are just great. I can hear things. I really I don't think I'd ever heard my son's voice. So it's
Wow.
despite Prozac.
Wow.
And
By
I
the way, I people can see your son on your wonderful Instagram. I love watching Charlie dance. He is such an upbeat presence. Um, I
he's
just
my daddy, I think. I swear my dad sent him. I have like, I don't know, hazel eyes. They're like brown. My husband's dark brown eyes. My son has these blue eyes. And I'm like, you know what? Grandpa Mel sent him. Um, yeah, and that's another thing. Oldster. I didn't think I was gonna have kids. And and there's so many things I want to talk to you about, like one of the 9 million reasons, but like thank God. I'm so glad I did, and yet I'm I'm confident. Well, it's weird to say now because he's here, so I can't imagine my life without him. But I was confident before my life would be as fulfilling, whether I had children or not. Now it's almost impossible to say that because he's here. You're like, wow. But you know, I had him. I was 41,
well,
and
if you're doing things at the wrong time, you're doing them the right time, for Oldster. That's how I see things, because I've never done anything at the right time in my life. And that's
me
part of
neither.
why I started
Literally.
this. And I love that you became a mom later in life, and you're able to appreciate it in ways that you might not have been if
Oh,
it had happened
100%.
earlier.
100%. And look, I'm a way better mom. There's regrets. I do my best to live a life with no regrets, but I'm a Jew. Come on. But I, you know, yeah, like I was just with my friends, and she has 3 kids. The one who came up with shame loss, and I was cuddling with her daughter in bed, and like I would have loved that. Now that I have a kid, right? Now that I have a kid, I'm like, oh, but and I biologically could. I think right now, do I want to go through that at 48? That would be no. Mm-mm. So, but I appreciate. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I'm a better mom. So many people are like, when he was just born, they're like, you have other kids. You're so, and I would have thought I would have been so neurotic. I was like the mom that already had 6 kids. I was just like, eh. And a lot of that just comes from being older, and then I started this thing called no bullshit motherhood because so many people seemingly admired the way that I was being, which was just utterly myself. But it was like, oh, I'm not trying to compete with any other moms. I don't give a shit. And that was like people felt like that was revolutionary.
That's fantastic. So let me ask you a question. If a genie came up to you and offered you the opportunity to no longer have hearing loss, would you take them up on it?
God damn it, no one's ever asked me that. Sari, wow. Jesus Christ. Why is that such a hard question?
Because it really feels like it is so,
It makes me want to
um, it's
cry.
such an essential part of who you are and the work that you do, the deep listening. Um,
Hmm. God. Huh. If you asked me that on a day when my inner asshole was raging, right, which we all have one, And I was feeling sorry for myself. And my tinnitus was like even worse because it vacillates in how bad it is. Then I would be like, yeah. But at where I stand now, where I sit on my floor in my 40s, no. Because you're right. I think so many of the gifts in my life have come from that. And I'm saying that from a place of hindsight, not like any kind of bypassing or toxic pucks. I can't even say.
Positivity.
Yeah. Um, I don't think so, but and I don't say this because there's anything, obviously wrong with being capital D deaf, but my fear is one day it'll go completely, like all sound will go. And the thing is, if you know ASL and you have a community, it's different, but like getting by in the world, but no, I no. So no, I mean, I have other things I'd ask the genie for. Would that work? Could I say
Yeah,
one
yeah, that's a good answer.
my nephew, my sister's here. It's so sweet. She's in my office sleeping and she never gets to sleep. My nephew has a rare genetic disorder called Prader-Willi Syndrome.
I
And
once wrote an article about it. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, the autism, you can deal with, but the Prader-Willi syndrome is a deletion or partial deletion of the 15th chromosome. And one of the ways that it's a spectrum, but one of the ways it affects one with PWS is it affects their hypothalamus and it makes them starving to death all the time. So if you can imagine the hungriest you've ever been, imagine feeling that every minute of every waking hour and sleeping hour, and nothing you do, no matter how much you eat, will satiate that because it's a brain thing, not a stomach thing. So you would like eat dog food. Um, I mean, that's just one of the things. There's also behavioral, but that's the sad, the pain. And then my sister is always in fight or flight because you literally cannot turn away from him. You have to watch him all the time. I would take away his hunger, Jeannie.
Yeah. So what is up next for you? I know you're working on a new book. What else have you
Ha
got
ha
going
ha
on?
ha ha ha. I am. I mean, I am. I get very overwhelmed. Another thing I've just recently started talking about is ADD. Like, talk about shame. I mean, I don't think I said it out loud until a couple months ago, but I get really overwhelmed with like book proposals and like that's my nemesis. So my friend Kristen McGinnis, highly recommend her if you ever need help, will help me with that. But very similar to the themes I'm working on, very similar to the themes that you're working on, not only in Oldster, but just like being a person in the world. um, yes, I'm working on a new book, and I just had lunch with my editor. They want another book from me, but we're trying to hammer that what that is at the moment. But yes, and apparently they want more of a self-help book, and I'm grappling with that because I mean, inadvertently, On Being Human was self-help, but it was what they call inspirational memoir, which when I sold it, another thing of shame. When I was at NYU, I thought I was going to be in academia. I thought I was going to be like you, more like you, right? I don't know, whatever that means, but like smart and like I just, edits literary magazines um and then I became a yoga teacher, and so everyone was like, "This is yoga teacher Jen, inspirational memoir Jen," and that I was like, "No, I want to be literary Jen." Now I don't give a shit. Just read it. I don't care what you call me. um, but I am working on another book if I actually get to writing. And a lot of the things we've talked about here, putting down shame and being right on time, and quieting the inner asshole.
Love
And
it.
should is an asshole. Oh, these shoulds. Well, you should have kids by 36.
Well,
You should have a
yeah,
college degree.
I'm familiar with all that. And I'm so glad that you reject it. And also that you reject the ways that people try to define you into one version of yourself. I'm pro many versions, as many versions as you need.
Right?
Yeah.
But why it took me till now. And it's funny. I mean, someone gave me a compliment. It was like a year ago, and I think it was one of the best things. She said, "You're so embodied," and I was like, "I love that." It took me until now. just like, oh, okay, I don't want to go back to my 20s. I do only because my body didn't hurt in certain ways, but just like the confidence in who I am and like, yeah, and guess what? You can call me whatever you want. It doesn't matter. And, I don't necessarily want to be called mean names, but like you can call me Jen the yoga teacher, whatever. It doesn't matter ultimately.
Yeah,
Uh,
aging is very clarifying. It really helps you narrow down who you are and who you aren't.
yes, yes,
It becomes
yes.
harder and harder to pretend you're someone that you're not, which is really liberating, I find.
Yeah, and my dad died when he was 38. So you can imagine the complications I have around aging. In my book, I talked about all the time, 38 was the age of death. So like I'm 9 years older now than my dad ever got to be. And I, I mean, it's something I grapple with every day. Like I still have a very hard time visualizing the future. Even it's just like I get stunted, when I was 8, and I'm working every day of my life too, but like it's hard to visualize the future, and so I never plan for anything, and that's part of the reason that things happen for me the way they do, quote unquote, later. Um, so yeah, the next book, if I get around to, no, I will. I'm not gonna say if, when I, yeah, it'll be right on time. And the irony is, I was like, I don't want to be 100 when my next book comes out. And I thought this is hilarious. I'm literally like talking about all these things and whining about, um, not wanting to be 100 when my next book comes out. And then I'm also, I'm reclaiming my writing. I'm doing a writing course in February, a 1-day one called Allow. I love that word. What are you allowing? Um, and like a bunch of people already signed up, just 3 hours for the first one. And it's a space to it's for everyone, no shame, and generative writing. And I'm actually doing with my friend Kristen, who's helping me with the book proposal, we're doing a poetry workshop in January. Poetry is my first love. That's what I studied at NYU. That was what I thought my path would be. And so we're gonna do, she named it WAP, like the song, but we're all poets. And every couple months we're gonna do a different one with a different poet. And our first one, January, is with my beloved, beloved sister friend Naomi Shihab Nye. And that is January 9th. And that's exciting. I mean, talk about fangirl. She is just the end all be all to me. Um, and then I turned, in the pandemic, I turned my retreats online, which I never could have imagined would work. And it works just like the best thing ever.
That's fantastic.
And I'll
It's so
do
good to
shape ups.
hear.
It really does, because one of the reasons it works so well too is because I can hear better. I
Wow.
can hear better than in person,
Another silver lining. I know that we're not
right?
supposed to be toxically positive, but that is a silver lining.
No, for real. I mean, who would have thought that? And like, I mean, it's mind blowing. It's like I hate Zoom. I'm like, well, I can actually hear, and I don't have to work as hard. And wow, and I don't mean I don't mind working hard. I mean, strain to hear. And then and it's also more affordable for people who like can't go to Italy. And then Shame Loss is like a series that I do, which I have guests too, which actually I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you if you want to do one of them with me, because I think it would be great.
I would love it.
Catherine May, do you know who she is?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Wintering.
Yes, we've become really good friends. I
And I
call her
just
my
got
winter.
her new book, a galley of that. Yeah.
Her memoir, which she actually wrote before Wintering, but came out here later, The Electricity of Every Living Thing, where she talks about really there's so much overlap with us, with her autism and my hearing loss, and the ways that we pretended and hid and assimilated and shame. So she's going to do one, and Paulina Poroskova did one with me in April on aging, and essentially it's a place for people to come to put down shame,
I love it.
and writing exercises. And so
Count me in.
yeah, I would love that. I would love that. I would love that. And yeah, so there's just a lot of really cool stuff. And I the pandemic broke me like it did a lot of people, like it really did. And so I feel like a big cliche, and probably was like the best thing that ever happened in the same way. I ended up buying a house, which in a million years I never thought. I never allowed myself to even dream that. Um and a lot of it was magical and kind of woo, but I did, and later, quote unquote, like I have a home. My son's never had a bedroom
Oh,
ever,
wow.
you know. We've lived in a 500 square foot apartment, and I was very open about that. And I think the irony of like, oh my God, what if I share this and people are going to think whatever? The irony is it made me more successful. The more I shared my tiny, tiny, messy, you know, tiny apartment, I think people were like, oh, wow, okay, she's really successful and it's so comfortable sharing that. Maybe I can redefine what success is, or maybe I don't have to hide.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much for making time to speak with me today, Jennifer Pastiloff.
Yes.
I look forward to all your new developments and to eventually taking you up on that free session of your shame loss yoga class, which I keep putting off, but I'm actually going to
No,
take
no, no,
it
no.
soon.
That is quieting your inner asshole.
Okay. Quieting your
I know.
inner asshole yoga. I'm going to take that um, after the holidays, I swear.
Yeah, I think you'd really like it. And the shame loss isn't free. Like you and I, like we charge. The people come.
Okay.
We do give scholarships. But the my yoga class I teach on Saturdays for anyone listening or watching. And if you're in Ojai, reach out. You can come in person. I'm not going to say where it is because and it's really cute. It's like half on Zoom, half in person, and then after we all sit around the computer and talk for a few minutes. But I want everyone to come. If you don't have money, come anyway. I don't care. I can't do that with Italy, but when I can, I can. So, and then there are people that pay it forward. So it's just really
That's
um,
wonderful.
it's really sweet.
Well, thank you again. And
Thank,
we'll have links for everyone and we'll keep talking. Thank you so much.
thank you.